How many of you have flown to Tallahassee? You know, you can drive faster to Tallahassee than you can fly to Tallahassee. Anyway, we were up there for Broward Days, and I'm glad to report that we were well received. We had the leadership from the House for the next 3 years speak to us, and I was very, very pleased in general with their reaction to the delegation that we had from Broward County. But I can share with you that the perspective I heard from the Senate, for the first time it kind of crystallized for me what they think of us down here. And they look at us in a different way than the rest of the state because they think that we're rich. We are rich. You know, I look around the room and I think of the rich history we have with the city of Fort Lauderdale, with First Baptist Church. We are rich because we have great leaders, not only in Congress, in the State House, and in the Senate, and in our cities and all of our municipalities down here. But they look at us for the main reason is that we send a lot of money to Tallahassee. So we get pennies on the dollar of what we send up there. And that's a real issue for us because they don't think we need anything more because we're so rich that we can give them all this money and then they can dole it out for the rest of the state. So we have to do something about that. And the reason it's difficult for us is because most of our delegation, in fact, I think almost all of our delegation is Democrats. And obviously the House is run by Republicans, the Senate is run by Republicans. That's not a bad thing, but it makes it difficult from leadership positions. And so we have to look at that very closely because we have big needs. We have huge infrastructure needs. Mayor is going to touch on a few of those in his comments. From bridges to underground infrastructure to roads, everything we have. When you're a city that's just turned 100 a few years ago, things start to wear out. So we need to replace. We got to talk about water. Water's a big issue in Tallahassee. Water's a big issue in South Florida. Saltwater intrusion, all the things that we've been talking about. How are we going to make sure that we have water to drink so that our kids and our grandkids have water to drink? So those are big issues. The governor's been doing some great things environmentally. I'm really excited about what the governor's talked about environmentally. We made the state of Florida, a huge land purchase. Many of you probably heard about that. So that we don't drill and that we reserve that land in the Everglades. So really great stuff going on there, but we also have to deal with all the water that we send out to the ocean and what that does to all of our great coral reefs that we have out there. You know, our coral reefs, many of you probably don't know this, our coral reefs are dying, astronomically dying. Certain corals can be dead once they get infected within 6 months. And they've been there for over 200 years. So we got to protect those because what happens is tourists come here, visitors come here, and what do they want to do? They want to go dive the reefs. So we got to protect those reefs. And the reefs, what else do? They quell the energy from the water as it's coming in from the ocean so that we don't have this big erosion for our beaches. So we were up there talking about beach renourishment, and we put $50 million of sand on our Fort Lauderdale beaches, and as soon as we put it on, it goes back out into the ocean. So a lot of issues that we're dealing with environmentally. I want you to really think about the calls for action that we're going to send to you this year. This afternoon, our executive committee is going to be voting on a new kind of a political system that we can marshal our resources, you being resources, so that we can get our message out to our elected officials that much faster, and also so that we can raise money for issues. So the PAC word's going to come up this afternoon, a political action committee for issues only. I'm hoping that the executive committee, some of whom are in here right now, will think favorably upon that coming out of our political affairs committee. A couple of other things I want to talk about just briefly. Teachers' pay is on the table up in Tallahassee right now. How are we going to pay teachers so we attract the best and that we keep the best so that our kids are getting the best education in our public school system that they deserve? Those are our future leaders and our future employees, and we got to make sure that they're trained properly, and that all starts at home first and then in the classroom with our great teachers second. Last thing I'll share with you is we had a great group, a new group, for cultural arts up there this year. And cultural arts is, believe it or not, a big driver for our economy. Not only for businesses looking to relocate here, because they want the greatest live, work, and play and experience that they can have, especially the millennials. They love the experiential stuff. So we got to have great arts, great culture, because that's what brings people together is the arts and culture. It breaks down the barriers of our political divides and our money divides that we have, because it hits you in the heart, and that's what really matters here in South Florida, because we have great heart in Fort Lauderdale. We have great heart in South Florida. Last thing I'll let you know is this spring we're putting together a regional transportation summit, I'll call it. And this is bringing all the MPOs, the TPOs, TPCs together in the Tri-County area, the 12th largest economy in the United States by GDP, the 38th largest in the world. We're bringing everybody together because what we need to do is figure out what our priorities are transportation-wise. What bridges do we need? What roadways do we need to raise? How are we going to get people around and move people from point A to point B in a manner in which we probably, to this point, haven't thought about? I read an article the other day, Mayor, about flying cars. That they're close to coming out. So the technology is going to change. We have to be prepared for it. We had a delegation go to Asia to research it. A number of opportunities. So I encourage you to watch for that and participate in it, because we need not only the elected officials there and the regulators and transportation folks there, but we need the business community there, because we need to make sure that your voice is heard. In closing, I want to say it's been a long time coming, but the leadership of the board about 5 years ago heard me talk about two things. One was marijuana. And I said, that's the next big cash crop in Florida, and it still will be eventually. A lot of talk about that going on in Tallahassee. We heard from Ag Commissioner Nikki Fried about that. But more importantly, on another side note, is resiliency. You've heard me talk to you all about resiliency. We have to protect our $1 trillion plus investments that we have in the ground up and down our coastline here. And in December, we're bringing the world to South Florida at the Marriott Harbor Beach for the International Resiliency Conference and Convention. So that's something that you're going to want to go to learn, to participate. There'll be 3 other conventions included in there dealing with insurance, dealing with flood and risk. So make sure that you think about those types of things, transportation and infrastructure, and then, of course, resiliency. It's my pleasure to be your president and CEO. I am really honored to be, I think, the longest serving president in modern times for the Chamber. 13 years now. I've outlived my useful life expectancy. If I was an elected official, I'd be term limited. But hopefully, we're not thinking about that, right, Bill?
It's a good thing you're not an elected official.
Yes. And I got to tell you.
No impeachment.
Well, don't bring up that. So I got to thank the leadership of the Chamber, the volunteers who spend all their time, don't get paid for it, but really guide the organization. Without the volunteers we have in this room, it wouldn't be there. So Bill, thank you for all you are going to do this year. And Steve and Melissa, thank you as well. And Romney, thank you for being the oldest law firm in town.